Hello, my name is Margaret Dominguez, and this is my STEM journey. A little bit about my background. I'm originally from a small town in the country of Mexico called Tecamachalco in the state of Puebla. I grew up in a pig farm where there you see me holding one of the piglets of the pig farm that my dad still has. I am one of 4 sisters. I am the oldest one, all of us doing very different and exciting jobs. When I was studying my basic education, my elementary school, middle school, high school education in Tecamachalco, Puebla, I was very active in extracurricular activities. And I want to mention this quickly because I think those activities, you can see me there dancing with those beautiful Mexican folkloric dance outfits. You can see me in the top right doing poetry and theater and all of these extracurricular activities that I just did because they were fun, ultimately really helped me do what I do today because they were able to complement my learning with engaging my communication skills, getting comfortable speaking to other people, and being eloquent when trying to convey an idea. So these are some pictures of me and my sisters back when we were in Mexico, in Tecamachalco, Puebla, doing a lot of extracurricular activities. I love to tell my story in terms of bridges. I think all of us every day we cross a bridge, whether it's small or big, but I think we're all making changes every day, just a little bit at a time. The first bridge that I crossed was actually pretty small, was within my state, and I went from Tecamachalco, Puebla to Puebla, Puebla, where I decided to go study physics at the Universidad de las Américas Puebla in the city of Puebla, or short for UDLAP. I was so intrigued by the natural sciences, and I thought that I really wanted to understand our universe, the space that surrounds me, and I thought physics was a great way to be able to do that, in addition to the fact that I loved math. So I completed my undergraduate degree in Mexico, and then it was the time to evaluate what other bridge I was going to cross. So at that point, I considered staying in Mexico or leaving, and I applied to different places, and I was finally accepted at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. And there I crossed a much bigger bridge. So I went from Puebla, Puebla to Tucson, Arizona to go study optical sciences, the dual master's PhD program at the University of Arizona, and I took off. And it's important to point out that I didn't have any family in Arizona. I didn't have any friends there. The only thing that I knew in Arizona was that I was going to get to University of Arizona. I had a full scholarship, full fellowship, where I wasn't going to have to be worried about money. All I was going to have to be worried about is my school, my classes, and make sure that I got a good grade. So I left really everything behind, and I went to take off to take on this journey. And it was really exciting. After a few years in Arizona, and I started making friends, and I loved living there, I decided that it was time to move on because NASA reached out to me and they said they wanted me to be working full time. I had started doing summer internships when I was doing my undergraduate degree in Mexico. So then I took off and I crossed another bridge from almost the west side to from the west coast to the east coast. And I left Arizona, I left my friends, everybody I knew. And again, I moved to Maryland, not having any family here, not having any friends here, just the job that it was a really exciting job. So I took across the country, and that was, of course, another really big bridge that would allow me to start working at NASA. Now at NASA, I like to think of my job at NASA requires me to wear 2 hats, an engineering hat and an outreach hat. And I love to do outreach. I love to do outreach so much that I'm constantly taking on any opportunity I can to talk about the important things that we do at NASA and talk about optics, which is what I do. I'm an optical engineer at NASA. So here I am. I was invited to my alma mater, Universidad de las Américas Puebla, a few years ago to be able to give a TED Talk. Then I was invited to another event in Mexico City called TEDx Mexico City Women, where I was able to talk about the work that I'm doing at NASA. I was invited to Peru, to the Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú, where I was able to talk about one of the space telescopes that I was working on at that time. I was invited to go to Mexico City to a children's science museum for an event called Talent Women. This was especially important and meaningful to me because it was a children's museum of science where I had gone when I was an elementary school student as a field trip. And I remember thinking that the place was so awesome, so amazing, and I learned so much. And now, many years later, I come back and I'm able to share with the students that went there. So it was a wonderful, sort of a dream come true opportunity for me to be able to do that. Of course, you guys are familiar with Bea. And here I am, and another wonderful opportunity to talk to students about the work that I'm doing at NASA. We both got invited to give a talk at Miami-Dade College, and that's how I got to meet her. So definitely through outreach opportunities, we get to meet so many people that are really cool and really fun, and then we become friends, and that's also a wonderful thing about doing educational outreach. Last year, before the pandemic hit and before all of us had to sort of be more restricted to being home, I was still able to travel at the beginning of the year to a school in Madrid and Spain. And I got to talk to almost 150 elementary school students. And I have to admit that I was terrified at the beginning because I thought, how am I going to keep them engaged talking about space and NASA and telescopes? And the kids were amazing. They were so smart, so quick, fast on their feet, and had wonderful, challenging questions. And I was really happy to be able to do that. Now, of course, it's not always possible to do presentations in person. So even pre-pandemic, I was able to do a lot of virtual presentations. And here you see me doing a presentation with a planetarium in Cancun. So I love to be able to do this as often as I can to reach out to the community and cast a net as wide as I can. During the pandemic, I was invited to be part of a panel where one of the other 3 members of the panel was a NASA astronaut, Mexican astronaut Jose Hernandez, who went to the International Space Station. You can see him right below the picture with me there. And I was so excited to be able to participate, with a panel next to an astronaut. I thought, this is awesome. And I thought it was a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to do that. So sharing my passion for outreach, sharing my passion for NASA has really allowed me to meet wonderful people and just learn from them, which is really ultimately a wonderful thing. Now, through these various outreach efforts, I've been able to collaborate with some formal programs like Latina Sci Girls and Tecnolochicas, and of course, Bea is another Tecnolochica. And you see me participating through these pictures with these different girls. These programs are mostly focused on elementary and middle school girls of Hispanic background or not, where anybody can learn about this. But these specific platforms are targeting girls so that we can sort of inspire them, get them a little bit curious about STEM, because we do see a lot of girls sort of lose interest in science and technology. And I love what I do, and I want other girls and other people to love potentially something similar that they could be doing. So these programs give us a platform to share that with other girls that are curious, so that we can continue to sort of foster that curiosity. So I've been really happy to collaborate with these different programs to be able to share my passion. But these pictures are to show you guys how much I love to do this. And I really, really love to do outreach on my time off during the weekends. So much so that 3 years ago, I got married to my wonderful husband. And there you see me doing an outreach demo at our wedding. So I'm really lucky because my husband is also a NASA engineer. He's also in the same field that I am. So we're both optical engineers working at NASA. And I told him as we were getting ready to plan our wedding, we need to do a little optics demonstration so we can show all the guests on our wedding what we do and share that passion of optics with everybody there on our special day. So we had this cute diffraction grating glasses demo, which essentially enables us to show one of the optical phenomena that we see in our planet every day which is called diffraction, where through these grading glasses you can sort of see this effect of a rainbow when you look at white light around you. So it's such a great thing, and this is just to show you how much I really love to do outreach and talk about optics with anybody that will hear me. So let's get a little bit more serious and talk about engineering, because that really is what enables me to be able to do outreach. I told you that I studied my master's and PhD in optical sciences. I am an optical engineer, but what is this thing called optics? Optics studies light and the interaction of light with anything around it. So there are various optical systems around us. We have two wonderful biological optical systems that form part of our body. Every day now in our pockets, we have our cell phones that have a camera. That's another optical system. A telescope, a microscope, fiber optics, lasers, even rainbows are all optical phenomena or optical systems. So if you think about it for a second, optics is really all around us. So to be able to work on something that allows me to connect with so many people, and at NASA, we build optical systems like space telescopes that allow us to take pictures of outside our space, outside our planet in space, which is really, really exciting. So here are some cool pics of me in the lab. I love to be in the lab and be building things. So you see me there building an optical system in the chamber on the left, and you see me in the clean room where I'm standing in front of a coordinate measuring machine. And this is a device that allows us to make very, very accurate measurements. So I want you to think about, if you had one of your hairs off of your head, it's about the thickness of 50 to 100 microns. The device behind me in that picture in the clean room with that bunny suit that's covering me completely allows me to measure about 1/100th the thickness of one of my hairs. So imagine, a hair is pretty thin. Imagine you divide that thickness in 100 parts. And that's how precise that machine can measure. At NASA, we really focus on doing very, very precise measurements, and we use really sophisticated machines like the one you see behind me. Now, in this photograph, I show you a cryogenic chamber. So whenever we send anything to space, we have to be very cognizant that space is a very harsh environment. So in order to be able to survive in space, we need to be able to make sure that if we recreate that same space environment here on Earth, whatever we put in that space type environment is going to survive. Because space is very cold or can be very hot if you get really near the sun and everything could melt. The pressure is different, the gravity is different. Everything is going to be very different. And the devices that we send into space, the instruments that we send into space are going to behave differently because it's a different environment. So that chamber that you see behind me, that blue cylindrical thing, is what we call a cryogenic chamber, and allows us to recreate the environment in space so that we can verify that whatever we put in that chamber is going to operate properly before we send it to space. I'm very fortunate that nowadays I get to work on the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which is going to be the successor to the James Webb Space Telescope that is set to launch in October 2021. So we're only a few months away from this very important telescope. And the James Webb Space Telescope is the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope, which has been very well known because it's taken so many beautiful pictures of our expanding universe. Now, I want to end my time talking to you guys by sharing a few lessons that I've learned throughout my life. I want to encourage you guys to think of what you want to do. And this is relevant if you're younger and you're not sure what you want to do when you grow up. But you can also, sort of be a grown-up and be evaluating if you want to change career paths. So we first have to start thinking, what do we want to do? Then we need to look for resources so we can make that happen. And resources come in different shapes and forms. Resources can be teachers, can be parents, friends, organizations, scholarships, internships. We need to be able to get help because we do not do anything effectively in our society if we just do it by ourselves. So it's important that we look out for all of the resources through different organizations like have a foundation, of course, and learn from them, learn from people what to do, what not to do. But we first have to know what we want to do so that we get the resources, so we start going in that right direction. And then we have to work really, really hard. I'm here today doing really cool things at NASA because I've worked really hard. Now, it's really important that I remember to balance that with having fun, but I always have to be very aware that in order to be able to move forward, it requires sacrifice and a lot of hard work. Part of the things that include me having fun is that I'm actually a jazzercise instructor. Jazzercise is a dance fitness exercise, and I actually teach about 2 to 3 classes a week. And I have customers, of course, during the pandemic, the classes are virtual, but I'm able to exercise and dance to all kinds of music while getting fit, while doing something that's really good for my body by doing something that's really good for my mind. So that's one way that I get to still do a lot of fun things at NASA during the day, and then in the afternoon I get to jazzercise and complement very well to all of my daily activities. Never stop learning is another important lesson. At NASA, we have really, really smart people that work there, but they're only really smart because they're always willing to learn, because they want to ask questions and they're willing to explore new solutions and new approaches. It's important that we always learn, but it's very important nowadays that we learn using reliable sources. In the day of the internet, where everything is accessible, which is a really wonderful thing, we have access to so much information, but that also means that we have access to so much misinformation, to a lot of pieces of information that are not accurate, that are just someone's interpretation. And there's nothing wrong with people posting their perception or their interpretation, but it's scary when we assume that an interpretation of something is a fact. And that's not true. And we need to be able to understand what are facts and what are interpretations. So I invite all of us to remain vigilant, to be critical of all the information we read, of everything that's out there, so that we don't accept everything we hear, but we question it, so that we make sure that what we do accept as factual is in fact factual. So let's pay attention to where the information is coming from. And my last piece of advice that I think I borrowed from Bea, because she said this when we met in Miami. Something that's really important is to give back. We all have something that we can share with somebody else, even if it's just 5 minutes to listen to somebody else that needs some time to vent. We all have something to give back to somebody else. So I encourage us, and I remind myself, give, share something that you have with people around you. Thank you very much, guys.